doing that, I was face to face with it. It was holding me by my throat, and it felt like it was sucking something out of me.
I probably should have been more scared than I was when I witnessed the exorcism.
I turned and looked on my right side. When I did, there's a beam on the side of the tree, a large beam. It's looking at me and I'm looking at it.
After I hit the lock button and looked back up, I saw red eyes staring back at me.
That they're going to show multiple gods all over the earth, be able to speak in people's languages, and at that point, it kind of converge into this one entity, which will be revealed as extraterrestrial. You'll realize that aliens are the gods of old, and at that point, it'll wipe religion out of the context of humanity.
No, it couldn't have been a person, I know that. I know that people can't run through the woods like that.
So this thing comes into view, and I see it. It's 50 yards away from me. It's walking on two legs. It's huge. This is a big, hairy looking being.
Welcome. I'm your host, and this is Uncomfortable. Welcome back to the show, my friends. I am your host, Eric Szilagyi. If you've had an uncomfortable experience and you'd like to have it featured on the show, please get a hold of me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, both at Uncomfortable Podcast 65. And most importantly, please share the show with others and make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you can. That's the main way you can help in getting the show out in front of more people. Ladies and gentlemen, it is here. Finally. Tickets for this year's Bigfoot and Brews are now available. You can go to our Facebook page at Uncomfortable Podcast 65 and find the link to the event page. You can purchase tickets right through there. It will take you right to the Eventbrite site. And also, that link will be in the show notes. I'm thrilled to be able to announce this year the current speaker lineup consists of Mr. Robert Kreider, who was most recently on my show in episode 100, and also Mr. Stacy Brown Jr., who was featured on episode 112. This event will be held at the same place as last year at Sister Lakes Brewing Company in Dowagiac, Michigan. This year, in addition to the general admission tickets, we are offering a VIP dinner with the speakers the Friday night before the event. Not only will you be able to enjoy dinner with our two speakers, but you will also partake in a screening of Stacy Brown Jr.'s latest 4-part video series. VIP tickets are limited to 30. There are only 30 tickets for the dinner and the movie. So, these are going to go fast, folks. If you're interested, I would not hesitate to move on those tickets. When you go through the Eventbrite, just make sure you scroll down past the general admission. Then you'll see the vendors, and then you will see the add-on for the VIP. The Uncomfortable Patreon is live. If you have been interested in helping support the show and receive extra content in the form of A Little Uncomfortable, all of our episodes without any ad interruptions, and the video series Uncomfortable Afterthoughts, head over to patreon.com/uncomfortablepodcast770 and see if any of the content levels there interest you. Thank you to all those who support me through Patreon and everyone who has supported me from the beginning by listening to the show. Without you, this would not be worth doing. Uncomfortable would like to welcome BetterHelp as our newest sponsor. Please give that ad a listen. It's about midway through the first half of this episode. In there, you will find a promo link that can get you 10% off your first month of services. Mental health is no joke. Ladies and gentlemen, nowadays, more than ever, we need to take care of ourselves. If you're struggling, if you're in a situation that you need to talk to somebody, this could very well be that lifeline you need. The link for BetterHelp's 10% off, our Patreon page, Red Circle, and our Discord server will all be in the show notes below. Now, for tonight's show, this is an oldie but a goodie, one of my favorite episodes. I wanted to do a rewind on this for some time, and now I think is that time. I had a conversation with this gentleman weeks after we had conducted this interview, and he had indicated that his father had kept a journal, and in that journal there were several pages that had information about these creatures in and around his parents' place. Unfortunately, any additional attempts at contact with this guest has fallen on deaf ears. I know that he had some health issues at the time of the recording, and my prayers go out. Hopefully he is doing well and has just decided not to talk about it anymore. After you hear this, I think you'll probably understand why. So, if you're ready for it, let's get into it. Attacked in East Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a guest. His name is David. He comes to us from East Texas. He has an encounter that, quite honestly, a third party started telling me about this, and I urged him to please stop, because I wanted to get this gentleman's account straight from his mouth. From what I've heard so far, an amazing, terrifying story. So, if you will, please give an uncomfortable welcome to David.
Uncomfortable, huh? Yeah. Well, I guess I just start at the beginning.
That's perfect.
I was coming from a gun show. Back then I had a federal firearms license and bought and sold guns all the time, and I normally carried a double-barrel shotgun in a special holster on my right leg. Well, the gun show was in Dallas, and I was going to Texarkana, so that's about a 5-hour drive, and, you know, I got the waterworks call about Sulfer River, and I crossed Sulfer River and went down into that boat ramp and got out of the car.
Now, this is the Sulphur River, is that what you said?
Yeah, the Sulfer River.
Okay.
And it runs into Wright Patman, and then it runs through there, through the dam, on over to the Louisiana side. But anyway, I got out, went over to the fence by the woods there, and taking care of business, and I was through, and I noticed a light over my shoulder. It wasn't quite daylight. It was getting there, but it wasn't quite daylight. And I turned, and there was a truck pulling a boat, and they had their headlights on, and I was trying to see if I knew who it was. And about that time, something grabbed my right ankle and snatched me from a standing position onto the ground and started dragging me through the woods. And I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'10", I weigh 356 pounds.
Wow.
Back then, I probably was about 280 or something like that.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was I was trying to figure out what it was that had a hold of me, because at first I thought it was somebody. But I couldn't think of anybody that would be stupid enough to grab a hold of me and try, do anything.
Can I ask you, just to clarify, again, this is in the early morning hours?
Real early. It wasn't even, the sun wasn't up, but it was getting light. Okay. It was getting light.
And you said you were over there taking care of business. I assume you were urinating?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
And so I don't know what kind of words to use on, what's acceptable and what ain't.
Anything you want is fine.
Okay.
This is an adult audience.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, it was dragging me, and it was getting lighter outside. The sun was just barely peeping over the trees and stuff. We was going through the swamp right parallel to the river, back towards right past down, dragging me. And I was kicking it and kicking and kicking at it. And finally, about 100 yards into the woods there, it dropped me.
Good Lord.
And when it dropped me, my right hand hit the top of my shotgun. It was a sawed-off L.C. Smith double barrel. Had 12-gauge slugs in it. And I pulled that shotgun out, and I stuck it up to right above his penis, between where his navel and his penis would be, and I pulled both triggers at the same time. And he dropped to one knee, and then he let go of me completely, and he grabbed a tree limb above his head, and I was able to scramble out back to the car, and I threw that shotgun in there, and I had a Dan Wesson 357 Magnum under the seat, and I pulled it out. I shot 3 shots back over the top of the car, and then I left, and I went to the hospital. And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I had I crushed my ankle, my right ankle. It still gives me trouble today. Of course, I'm a lot older today too. It's probably been 40 years ago.
40?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll be 65 this year, and messed up my knee, had to cut a few ribs, and so anyway.
So this thing dragged you for over 100 yards?
Oh, easy. I like to never get out there. I thought he was going to kill me. I really did. I don't get scared really talking about it, but I do get concerned, and I am glad I was carrying that. But now, I still carry, and I carry a 454 Taurus. And, their big advertisement is it'll stop a charging elephant.
Yeah. And
so I wouldn't hesitate to shoot one again.
Now, and I got to ask you, I mean, this is... I'm gonna say this is unbelievable, and I don't mean that I don't believe you. It's just that it's an unbelievable account.
Well, you ain't the first one that said that.
So you're in the grasp of this thing for a good while. If he's dragging you, nearly 100 yards or better. Can I ask you? And I know the lighting conditions weren't optimal, but what did you see? What was it that had a hold of you?
Well, at first I thought it was a man. I mean, because it was dark,
Mm-hmm.
and he was standing pretty close to me at that time. But he changed his grip. And he was dragging me he was facing me, dragging me with his left hand, but he dropped that side and picked me up with his right hand so I could walk forward, I guess. Whatever reason. But then when he dropped me the last time, he turned around and he was looking down at me and you could see his canines were sticking out. And that's when I rushed up against my shotgun, and all I could think of was I had to either kill it or, or it was going to kill me. But I think, now that I look back on it, I think that when I was up there taking a leak, he might have been laying there in the grass, you know?
Or was close enough to you while you were doing that. And with that being his territory, viewed that as an act of aggression.
Yeah.
A territorial display on your part.
Yeah. Those guys that came down there with the boat, 2 weeks later, me and some other friends went down there to see if we could find, you know, some evidence of, and we saw where he was standing in front of a tree, and then them slugs went right into that tree that he was standing behind.
So
he was standing in front of.
Went through his lower abdomen and went into the tree.
Into the tree. But there was marks there, but it looked like something I tried to mark out, you know, rake out tracks or whatever. And we never did find no hair, no blood, no nothing. But it'd been 2 weeks too.
Yeah.
So, but what I was going to tell you is, when we was coming out, those same guys, and I do know them, so they came down there and they said, "What in the hell happened to you?" And I said, "I don't know. You know, what do you say?"
Yeah.
They said, "We heard a terrible shotgun blow. We heard you shoot. And then after that, there was a horrible scream." Now, I didn't hear the scream myself, but they said they heard a horrible screaming. He said, "We just cranked over our boat and left from that area." I said, "Thanks, fellas." But
so you mentioned the canines. Can you be more descriptive as far as, you know, what the body shape was? You know, how large was it?
Well, he didn't really have a cone head. It was definitely a male. Had broad shoulders. Probably, now, like I say, I'm 6'10", so he was probably about 8 foot. You know, so that make him a foot taller than me.
Yeah.
But he probably weighed about 1,200 pounds, because I was raised around cows, you know, so I can guesstimate weights pretty well. But the canines were at least, I'd say, as wide apart as my hand is wide.
Yeah.
So about as wide apart as your cell phone is tall.
So a good 5.5, 6 inches.
Yeah, and they're as big as round as my thumb. And they came down on his mouth. His mouth was closed most of the time, except when I shot him. And then he opened his mouth up, and he had some smaller pointed teeth on the bottom, but I wouldn't really call them, you know.
Not like fangs, just.
Yeah, it was not fangs. It just like a dog has, you know. And he was kind of the sun was shining on his fur. He was kind of a reddish brown. When it was dark in there, he looked solid black. So originally I thought it was a black man. Mm. But when I saw his face and stuff, he didn't have a lot of hair around his eyes. He had long hair, about 4 inches long on his head. He didn't really have the cone-shaped head that a lot of people talk about, but his head did sit back on and he had no neck.
Yeah, set back on the trapezius.
Yeah. And he had his shoulders were huge. I'm talking about, there's at least 5.5 feet wide.
Jesus, that's the width of a pickup truck's tailgate.
Yeah. he was big.
And what did you notice as far as an actual skin color?
Well, he had a kind of a darker. It wasn't black. It was kind of a charcoal gray or something like that. You know,
kind of an ashy color.
Yeah. And what else I noticed was he had long fingernails. And his fingers were huge. His hands and his fingers were huge. And he reached up above his head when I shot him and grabbed a limb that was at least 6 foot over his head. He grabbed a limb in the tree. And I don't know if he's trying to get his balance or what. I wasn't hanging around to see. And somebody else asked me, why did you shoot that 357 back in the woods like that? I said, I just want to make sure I wasn't being followed. And then
I was going to ask if he was actually coming after you, or if that was just that
was just to let him know that I wasn't done.
Yeah,
I was done, but I didn't want him to know I was done. I couldn't hardly move at all by the time I got to the car. Like I say, it crushed my ankle. They was amazed at the hospital that I even got out of the woods. I didn't tell them what happened. I just told them it was a hog.
Not to dwell on something that was obviously a horrific experience for you, but at the moment that you placed that double barrel shotgun to its abdomen, when you yourself said you sold firearms for a living,
right?
You know what a shotgun will do to an animal, a normal sized animal, and what it can do to a human being's torso. With
no man could have withstood that. It would kill him dead.
And yet this thing, you can't tell me that you killed it.
No, I can't tell you. I can't honestly tell you that I killed it, but I can't say that I didn't kill it. I mean, he might have crawled off somewhere and died, or he might still be living today. I don't really know.
Now, you bugged out rather quickly, as quickly as you could. So did you ever see him leave his knee? And
no, I never seen it leave his knee.
Yeah.
I never seen it pull itself up with his arm. I just seen him reach up and grab that limb. It's almost like he was going to fall, or he felt like he was going to fall, and he grabbed that limb, But
isn't that odd that the fishermen heard that horrendous scream, but you didn't?
They did hear that scream. Well, they were still at the boat ramp backing out when all that happened.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you don't recall that at all.
I don't remember hearing the scream at all.
Your brain was, get my ass out of here. And
that's exactly what my brain was like.
Now, did you ever have any contact with authorities or anything as far as, the experience? Did you attempt to talk to local law enforcement, or?
Back in those days, you didn't talk to local law enforcement about stuff like that.
No.
This was happened in the 70s. So
by your statement there,
I'm
going to assume that this, the matter of these beings, these individuals, it was fairly commonly known that these things are in that area.
Well,
and that people just didn't talk about it, or? Yeah,
that's what happened. Well, our parents and grandparents always told us there were boogers in the woods. And my parents, we owned 600 acres down there on Sulfer River and had cows down there. So it wasn't the first time I had seen one, but it was the first time I'd had any interaction with one, sort of. I'd seen one pretty close to me when I was a little boy, but
Can you go into that experience?
Well, I guess so. I was putting out hay. We put out hay for our cows at night. And I was putting out hay. And back then, we had square bales. We didn't have round bales like they do now. Mm-hmm. And one run up and slapped the side of the truck. And so I bailed off the other side. My dad stopped and got his 30-06 out. And that's about it. Run back in the woods. There wasn't nothing else after that. It just ran out there and hit the side of the truck and had a big dent in the side of the truck. Of course, Dad was cussing like a sailor, but other than that, scared the living crap out of me.
Oh, I imagine. Can you guesstimate what age you were at?
I was probably about 7 or 8.
So was this, what was the conversation with your dad after that? I mean,
there wasn't no conversation.
You didn't talk about it. He
said, I told you there were boogers in the woods. That's all he said. I was crying. It scared me. But today, if I saw one, if I was within 100 yards of it, if you're within 100 yards of a Bigfoot, you're in their kill range. That's how fast they are. You're not safe at 100 yards. So if you're not packing heat, and I don't mean a 38 or 9mm or nothing, you better have a 45 and you better make it a headshot, an eye shot or something like that. Because I saw one later on, years down the road, a guy shot one with 308 and he didn't even stagger. He didn't even stop. He just kept coming.
Oh my word.
Yeah. So, but that's a story for a different time. That's a deer hunting story.
Yeah. Let me just ask you one thing about that. And I think it kind of circles back to when you shot the one that you were with.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obvious penetration of the bullet, correct?
Yeah. Well, the bullets went through, and me and some friends of mine went down there 2 weeks after it happened.
Yeah.
When I got out of the hospital, because that's the first thing I wanted to do. And we was loaded for bear then. You know, I carried 2 357s and my double barrel shotgun, and you know, my friends all had guns and 30-06s and stuff like that. But we didn't find. The only thing we found is where the bullets went into this pine tree.
Right.
And that's it. No hair, no nothing. And I was tempted to dig the bullets out, but I didn't do it. And I probably should have. But no, I wasn't that interested in it at that time.
Yeah.
And 2, you know, everybody heard about the Fouke monster at that time and
right,
all that stuff. And so it was just a crazy time anyway. So
you mentioned that your parents and your grandparents each had warned you off as far as boogers in the woods.
Yeah. They warned all of us, all the grandkids off. We had like 32 cousins, and all of us have been told, you know.
And was it kind of just a flippant remark like, "Oh, the booger's going to get you if you guys misbehave," or was it an actual, "Hey guys, you got to be aware of this"? Dark. I'm sorry.
It's a be home before dark, or them boogers will get you. And always traveling in groups.
Yeah.
2 or more. But there's times I've been in the woods. I've been in the woods by myself with 22 hunting squirrels 1,000,000 times. Never seen a thing. But, I think it happens this way. I'm not sure, but my theory is that once you see one or have an encounter with one, you'll see more. I don't know if they tag you or what, but I've never heard that where some people say that they speak to them,
Yes.
But I have heard them talk to each other.
Oh,
when I was in Boy Scouts, we just camped down there all the time, and you wake up in the middle of the night, and you could hear them talking to each other. It sounded just like that Sierra sound.
Yeah, the Sierra sounds. Yeah, the samurai chatter.
Yeah, the samurai chatter.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I think that they're more violent in this part of the country than they are up in northwestern Washington, California.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that does seem to be a interesting trait. You hear about a lot less violent accounts, like in the Pacific Northwest. They're almost like, they step out from behind a tree and they're like, oh, hey, I'm here, and then they just walk off. For some reason, a lot of the accounts from Texas seem to be more aggressive.
Yeah.
And
there's more hunters, more people that have guns down here, and people will shoot, without really thinking about what they're shooting at, or if they're something's trespassing on their property, or got one of their animals, or got a dog or theirs, or a calf or something like that. People here won't hesitate to shoot it. And that's probably why. But it's been that way for years and years and years. So that's probably why they're aggressive like that here.
So you think they're conditioned over from family groups raising their young in that area? They're probably taught that, better to err on the side of being aggressive right off the bat than.
Yeah. And another theory is that they raise their young in the trees. And that's why they walk like they do, in a straight line.
Yeah.
They learn to walk on limbs. And that's why they walk in such straight lines.
Oh, that's an interesting fact. I've never heard that put together, but that could make a lot of sense.
The reason, and that's another thing, that's why I think that we don't see little ones like the only time we're ever out, East Texans or anybody in Texas is out looking up in trees is when we're squirrel hunting, and not that many people squirrel hunt anymore. Not many people that eat squirrel stew, but I still eat squirrel stew. So, more people are into deer and hog hunting. Yeah. I go hog hunting still, and deer hunting and fishing and all that stuff. But
so
we've had a.
Go ahead.
We had back, I think it was in the 90s or 92 or somewhere. Used to, a long time ago, say in the 20s, we had a sugar bear, what they call a sugar bear. They're little black bears, population here, but we had a hunting season for them. And so we killed them all off. Well, in the 90s sometimes, it was in the paper that they was going to let 96 pair of black bear go on the type 2 property on Sulfer River. And they had a meeting down at this little town called Douglasville. And there's a bunch of arguing going on. And one of these Texas Ranger guys got up there and said, we didn't come to ask you if we could do it. We're just telling you we're doing it. And if you shoot one of them, it's a $500 fine.
Huh.
If you shoot and kill one, it's a $500 fine. So every once in a while, you don't see them very often, but every once in a while you'll see a bear down here now.
Really?
Yeah, and then they also had a big release of turkey, and so every once in a while you'll see a wild turkey. But fire ants got a lot of, like the quail. We used to have a lot of quail here.
Mm-hmm.
Fire ants destroyed the wild quail. I don't know why I brought that up, but I guess because I was talking about the turkeys. But anyway,
is that you think because quail spent so much time on the ground?
Yeah, they lay their eggs on the ground, and they, and two, they got a lot of fawns because a doe tell her fawn to stay in a certain place. And I mean, I've seen people run over with a bush hog, run over a fawn, not see it in the high grass or something.
Yeah.
And it'll stay there. And fire ants, if it's on a fire ant mound, they'll eat it. But
so in your, I assume you've lived there for years. I think you told me
off and on, off and on for years. Yeah.
Do you follow the subject of Bigfoot? Do you follow reports and sightings?
Ever since that one hit the side of the truck, I have followed it. There was a book called On the Track of Unknown Animals. I don't know who it's by, but I found it in the library at my school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little bitty school. That wasn't a big school. And I used to keep that book checked out and read about it. And they told all about, different things. And not just Bigfoot, but different kinds of animals.
Yeah.
Loch Ness Monster, and other things. But that and I'm not really interested in Area 51, but I do read a lot. I see a lot of videos about it.
Mm-hmm.
It comes on. I watch the History Channel a lot.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And so I see a lot about that on there. But yeah.
So in the area that you live, throughout the years, have there been many sightings that you know of? I mean, is this something that, guys at the general store talk about, or, you sit down at a bar and everybody's got a Bigfoot story, or?
You don't really want to talk about it because they'll make fun of you if you do, but they will talk about it around a campfire somewhere. I mean, they'll talk about things that has happened to them, or, something happened to their uncle or their grandfather, or, something like that. If you're out, but if you're around a bunch of people, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about it over coffee down at the coffee shop or nothing. But it's hard for people to come out and talk about things that happen. I mean,
well, yeah, nobody wants to be ridiculed.
Yeah. And I'm already a monster myself, I'm so big. I've been made fun of a lot myself.
I don't understand that. Who the hell would be dumb enough to make fun of somebody who was 6'10"?
Well, you don't know, people are just crazy. They're crazy.
And the fact, when you told me your height and your weight, approximate weight at the time when you had this incident, that's an amazing amount of meat for something to just grab a hold of with one hand and drag through a wooded area. I assume you were being dragged across fallen trees and limbs,
through briars and everything else. And I honestly forgot that I had that 12 gauge with me. I mean, I was kicking that at with my foot, and when it dropped me, my hand hit the butt of that gun.
And reminded you.
And then I just automatically, I picked it up, and the end of my barrel was sticking in his hair when I pulled them triggers. And now, thinking back on it later on, I had a long sleeve shirt on at the time, but I had the sleeves pushed up. But I was married at the time, and my wife said that she got blood out of the sleeve on my right arm. That wasn't my blood. It was just blood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there was some blowback
Yeah.
from that.
It just, I mean, it's just an amazing thing to think that you could empty a double barrel 12 gauge with slugs and it dropped it to its knee, but it didn't floor it. It didn't level it.
Yeah. Well, that just tells you the strength of the body strength of those things. That should have blown his spine in too.
Yeah.
On a normal human being, if I shoot you like that with a 12 gauge, it'd blow you in half. Yeah. I had no doubt. But not in this case, it didn't.
Now, with being as close as you were, and you had the recollection of the teeth and the hair length and the color of the skin.
Yeah.
What would your description of the face itself be?
Well, I didn't see, a lot of people say they see red eyes, glowing eyes, blah, blah, blah. It looked like I had brown eyes or, just regular eyes. They wasn't glowing. Well, they looked a little shocked when I was leaving their area,
Yeah.
He looked a little wide-eyed, but and his nose was more, it wasn't flat, like you'd think a gorilla or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It had a little bit of a nose like we do. And then he had his lips were small. He didn't have big lips, just a small, straight. His mouth was probably 8 inches wide total.
But just very thin lips.
Very thin lips, yeah.
When you looked at it, were you looking at an animal or were you looking at a person?
I was looking at a beast. I've never seen a person look like that. And to be honest with you, I've never seen an animal that looked like that. I've shot all kinds of animals. Bear, deer, all kinds of animals. And when I look at them, I see animals.
Yeah.
But when I looked at him, I saw a beast. And honestly, I seen a killer. And a lot of people say they have round fingernails like ours, rounded.
Yeah.
But he had long fingernails. They were probably half inch longer than you would think. But they wasn't pointed or anything, but they were rounded, tapered though. Because I got the scar on my ankle to prove it. But the doctor said, it's a miracle I got out of there with my ankle messed up as it was.
Do you have any recollection really of how were you able to motivate on that ankle with his
fear? I think fear and adrenaline itself got me out of that. I was scared, but I wouldn't be scared. I'd go back there today. I'd go down there tonight.
Would you really?
Yeah, I'd go down there tonight. I'm not scared. But see, I'd be packing heat. I'd have it 454. And I also have a 45 long rifle, low ration rifle, so I mean, this 454 only has 5 rounds to the revolver. And, but I can, at 50 yards, I can hit a quarter with it.
Yeah.
So it's got quite a bit of recoil, but I haven't magnaported it. I don't know if you know what that means.
I do, actually. When I was in my mid and late teens, I was on a competition pistol team with my dad. And he had a Magna-ported 45.
Yeah. This got a little more kick than a 45.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah. But this shoots the same bullet as my rifle does.
Does it?
Yeah, it's a pistol. Stays right by my side all the time. Right here beside me right now. When the trash man was out there, I had it on my belt. And he said, "Y'all are serious up here, ain't you?" And I said, you never know.
Before we close this out, any lasting effects? It's got to affect your psyche to some extent, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, I'm just more aware. I'm more aware of things, and I've always been able to see pretty good at night. I see better at night than I do in the daytime. Really, I always work. I was either a welder, or I worked on computers, or and stuff like that. So I was always in the dark working on stuff, and only light up when I'd strike a weld or when I'd get on a keyboard or something. And so I've always been able to, I've been attentive to things at night and in the dark. I don't know.
Going back to your grandparents and your parents with warning you and all of your cousins and everything, were there any specific like road signs that they said to watch out for? I mean, if you notice the woods gets real quiet, or if it gets real quiet, or if you feel you're being watched, come home. If you feel like you're being watched, come home. That was a big thing. Was it?
Yeah. Now you got to worry about pedophiles and idiots like that out in the woods. But, the one thing I wonder about, or I don't know why I run into these things, and I never run into anybody that's done some criminal stuff that could, and I'd rather shoot a pedophile than I had a creature that's just trying to live off the land. And
right. I agree with you 100% there.
Yeah.
There's a special place in hell for those people.
Yeah, you're right. But I got some more stories, but I ain't going to tell them to you today.
Okay. Well,
but if you want to hear them, you call me sometime and we'll talk about it.
I'd love to hear more from you, David.
Yeah. I have a good friend. I might get him I was with him one time, and we saw one that was taller than his truck. He had one of the first jacked up trucks around,
Yeah, monster truck.
Yeah, it was taller than the cab of his truck. But that's another story. But anyway, I enjoyed talking to you, and you didn't make me feel uncomfortable. That's a good thing, because I'd hate to have to drive up to your house and have to talk.
I would not be happy to see your silhouette coming up to my door, sir. If you were angry. All right, sir. David, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and I would love if you get a wild hair and you'd like to tell me more. I would be more than happy to do this again with you.
All right.
Thank you for taking the time, and I certainly appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.